What's up, YouTube? Sergeant Blake is back, and today is the second episode of The Mind of a Gamer. Now, we're going to take what we had with last week's episode of what we as consumers can do to make the industry better, and we're going to put it on the shoulders of the developers. What can the developers do to make this industry better, be taken more seriously, and just to be a better industry as a whole? Now, I'm going to start off with, it's really just a short list of do's and don'ts that I came up with, and I think that if the developers can follow these, then we will be well on our way to having a better industry. And after that, it will only be one other group of people's responsibilities to make this industry better, and that's the publishers. I'm going to talk about that next week, of course. Now, this week, like I said, is the developers, and I have a short list of do's and don'ts that I think that the developers should be able to follow pretty well. And I think that a lot of them are working on it as we speak, and that's a really good feeling that a lot of them know this already. Now, the first one is, don't rush your game, take your time. The reason why I say this is because a rushed game sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's always very obvious that this game was rushed. It feels half-assed, and it wasn't it really wasn't focused on enough. And I think that it's becoming more apparent with games that are coming out of EA and Activision, these big, huge gaming publishers, where the smaller companies are kind of given a date and they say, okay, do what you need to do, get the game out. And instead of actually getting the entire game out or asking for a later date, they just rush whatever they can to get everything out by the due date. It's kind of like if you've ever done a paper that was due the next day and you were just starting on it at like midnight of that night. I know that I've done that. I know that a lot of you have done that. It's the same thing. When you take your time to make a product, it's going to be better. If you wait until the last second, it's just going to feel rushed, it's going to look rushed, and no matter how hard you think you worked on it, it's really just going to get a B-. Now, that's personal experience from me to you, but it's the same thing. It's if you take your time, then you're going to have a quality product. If you proofread it and look at it, and this is the same thing with video games, if you test for it, if you comb through it every way you can, it's going to be better than it could be if it's the first draft of something. And like I said, personal experience, but that's the truth. I think that if you wait till the last second, it's just going to be crap. Or if it's not crap, it's just going to be not your best. And that's what every developer wants to do. They want to put out their best. Now, that also has to do with a lot of the publishers, and I'm going to talk about that, like I said, next week. But it's the developer's job to make their game the way they want to make their game. Don't take as long as you need to make the game the quality game that you're looking for. Because if you guys like it, then everyone else will like it too. Now, the next list of don'ts, or the next thing on the list of don'ts, is don't cut your game. Don't chop it up into DLC. And the reason why I say that is that and I know that a lot of other people do this, when you hear about a game that had DLC or that had a full story and is now selling the parts or selling the DLC online or on the marketplace or on the PlayStation Store, it's a faith crusher if you ask me. I mean, I for example, we'll use Resident Evil, because Resident Evil is one of my favorite games. Now, when Resident Evil 5 came out, I was stoked. I loved the game, and to this day, it's still probably one of my favorites. It's probably in the PlayStation right now. But when Capcom came out and said, yeah, we got Versus mode coming out, I was super excited. And then when they said, oh, it was on the disc already, we just kind of decided to charge you for it, I was really disappointed in them. And they've done that with other games. They're still doing it with Resident Evil, and other people, Ubisoft did it with Assassin's Creed, and it really makes a bigger impact when it's like Assassin's Creed and stuff, when the game itself is a single-player game, you have no other controller plugged in, there's nobody on the other side of the internet playing with you, there's only what you have in it is the replay value, and you're taking out parts of the story just so you can sell them later, and it just makes me lose faith in the developers. It makes me really not like the way they conduct business. And the main problem people have with this is that when they buy a game for $60 that half the story is cut out of, then they're not getting what their money is worth. And it's true. If I get a game that is a single-player game like Assassin's Creed, we'll use that as an example, like Assassin's Creed, it's a single-player game, and 2 of the 14 sequences are out, then I don't think I should have paid that $60. I should have paid $40, $50, or whatever, if you're going to charge me $5 more each time to buy this DLC. It makes me feel like they just don't have respect for me and my business. And that, in turn, makes me not want to support their future titles. So if you guys want to keep putting out good games that are good quality, then by all means make games and add DLC that actually add stuff to the game. The next thing on the list, and these are 3 things that people should do, or that the developers should do, is put quality before everything else. What I'm saying here is that graphics should be as best they can be. Controls should be sharp, tight, very responsive. If you're having any type of game, everything should be done to the top notch of your quality level. Because if you do something that's shitty, it's going to ring out much worse than it would if it were last generation or the generation before it. Because back then nobody could tell the difference. Nowadays, the difference between low quality and high quality is so very apparent that you really lose any kind of hope for anything when you hear about how low quality a game is. And the only reason I say this is just, the more time and effort you put into a game, the more people are going to like it, the more people that are going to buy it. And as long as it's a high quality game, as long as it's a game that is very apparent that you put work into, then nobody can say anything other than it's a quality game. The next one is pretty simple, and it's been in the news as of late because of heavy rain. It's about taking risks. Everybody knows the saying, no risk equals no reward, and the converse of that, of course, is risk equals reward. If you make a good game that's a little risky in terms of gameplay or whatever you're doing, like Heavy Rain, for example, and it turns out to be a success, then not only have you succeeded, but you've also opened the door for many other developers to go that same route. And the reason why I take Heavy Rain and I use that as an example is because none of us have really seen games like this. And a lot of people say it's like interactive point and click or just one big QTE, and a lot of people are saying after playing the game, it's so much more than that. And that's great because Quantic Dream has not only succeeded in what they've made a good product that people are liking and enjoying, but they've also opened the door for any other developer who chooses to make a game like that. And that's where the reward comes in. It's not just for you, but it's for the entire industry. The more games that we have that are like Heavy Rain, or that are risky, that succeed, the more games that we're going to have in the end, the more different types of games, the more people are going to be aware of these things. And I think that Heavy Rain is one of those games that should be pushed immensely. And I'm not just saying that every game should be like Heavy Rain, but I'm saying that every developer should have a chance to succeed when making a game like it. And that's what take risks means. Take a risk, do something that is out of the norm, and if it succeeds, then you have brought so much more to your company and so much more to the industry as a whole. And that's what this whole video is about. Adding to this industry, making it better. And finally, listen to your fans. This is the biggest thing, and I think I've seen it most recently. I've seen it a lot with Uncharted. Uncharted 2, one of my favorite games, of course, has a multiplayer component that everybody wants to talk about a lot. And there are problems that people have with it, and they get fixed. There are issues that people have with it, and they get fixed. There are things that don't work properly, and they get fixed. There are things that need to be changed, and they get changed. And as long as the community themselves are very vocal about what they want, then the developers that are listening should be able to make it so everybody's happy. Alright guys, that's it for me. I will probably see you tomorrow. No guarantees, but definitely on Saturday. Alright guys, that's it. Bye.